You're joining me in part 2 of a series of videos I'm creating that I have titled Fascia Story Time with Dr. Kate Oland. Here I'll be reading sections of my favorite fascia book, Anatomy Trains by Thomas Myers. We're going to continue on. We're in Appendix 1, a fascial reader. Metamembrane. Why do we need fascia? Blessed be the ties that bind, goes the old hymn. And fascia is the fabric that binds our cells together into our characteristic shape. Our fascial system evolved as a simple but elegant response to the challenge of becoming a multicellular organism. Although we can easily imagine great globs of undifferentiated, but still highly organized protoplasm in a fluid continuum. Flow is envisioned by Aristotle. Life on planet Earth committed itself early to building itself around a basic, multiply, repeated unit, the cell. This is akin to the atom vision of Democritus. Modern science posits that for about 1/2 of the 3.6 billion years or so that life has flourished, all organisms were single-celled, first as simple prokaryotic protista, which later combined symbiotically to produce the familiar eukaryotic cell. The so-called higher animals, including the humans who are the focus of this book, are not made of bigger cells, but instead coordinated aggregations of even higher numbers of these tiny droplet complexes of integrated biochemistry. In our case, on the order of 10 to the 8th or 10 to the 9th, or 40 to 70 trillion is the best recent estimate, of these buzzing little units somehow work together, coupled with a similarly numerous ecology of enteric bacteria in your gut to produce the event we experience as ourselves. We can recognize bundles of these cells even after years of not seeing them, or from several blocks away by observing their characteristic manner of movement. What holds our ever-changing soup of cells in such a consistent physical shape? Well, while small groups of cells can hook their membranes to each other with adhesive proteins, large groups of cells need a sturdier framework to avoid being smushed out of shape by gravity and the rest of the forces we encounter on Earth's surface. The fascial system, secreted into the intercellular space by connective tissues, is what life invented to keep organized populations of cells working together. As in human society, cells within a multicellular organism combine individual autonomy with social interaction. In our own tissues, we can identify 4 basic classes of cells: neural, muscular, epithelial, and connective tissue cells, each with multiple subtypes. We could oversimplify the situation a bit by saying that each of these emphasizes one of the functions shared by all cells in general, and the fertilized ovum and stem cells in particular. For instance, all cells conduct along their membranes, but nerve cells have become excellent at it, at cost incidentally to their ability to contract or reproduce. All cells contain at least some actin and thus capable of internal contraction, but muscle cells have become masters of the art. Epithelial cells also contract, but very feebly. Instead, they specialize in lining the surfaces where rapid chemical exchange is necessary, where they absorb nutrition and secrete hormones, enzymes, messenger molecules, and other cytokines into the fluid mix of our bodies. The 4th type, the connective tissue cells, are generally less effective at contraction, with one major exception explained later. And fairly good as iconic conductors, but their specialty is to secrete prodigious amounts of an amazing variety of collagenous goo into the intercellular space. This slime sorts itself and undergoes changes to form our bones, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, joints, and fascial sheaths. In other words, it is these cells that create the structural substrate to surround and hold all the others, building the strong, pliable stuff that keeps us together. This material, in turn, becomes the shared and communicative environment for all of our cells. Varela termed this exosymbiosis, shaping us and allowing our 70 trillion cells to coordinate movement toward an organismic intent. If the membrane contains a single cell, the fascia's metamembrane contains our whole organism. The body-wide net of fascia is the cell's organizing environment, the alembic for all our physiology. And we cannot let the word environment enter our discussion without quoting from the master of the term, Marshall McLuhan. Environments are not passive wrappings, but are rather active processes which are invisible. The ground rules, pervasive structure, and overall patterns of environments elude easy perception. This may go some way toward explaining why the cellular environment of the extracellular matrix has remained essentially unseen for some centuries of study. No more. Research on the role and function of fascia, while still nascent, is still underway. It appears we are on the verge of a radically new understanding of how we shape ourselves in space. Accordingly, parts of the following pages reach out beyond current research to some of the promising directions study of our fascial systems might take us. We have noted that the connective tissue matrix is the environment for all of our physiology. And of course, the fascial system is fully biological, created and maintained internally by our cells on the micro scale. It is thus dependent on functioning genetics, our diet, and our daily breath. It is, however, also fully mechanical to the point of being increasingly replaceable on the macro scale with manufactured prosthesis. A full understanding of our biomechanical autoregulatory system must span seamlessly from the epigenetic switches in the cell's nucleus to the entire biophysical organism. This is our ambitious goal. Read on. Read on. It's become apparent to me how the scientists and the philosophers were so intertwined in earlier times, because I think that's the point we're at right now with fascia. What is the philosophy of fascia? What is the science of fascia? What is the physical aspect, the biochemical, the physiological aspect of fascia? We are on the cusp of figuring some of this out. And I'm so glad you're here to be a part of this conversation. For the moment, I will say goodnight. But we'll be back soon with more Fascia Story Time with Dr. Kate Oland. Welcome to another episode of Fascia Story